So someone once told me that if the words aren't adding up, it's because the truth was left out of the equation. Okay, so there's a great many YouTubers out there who engage in these deep philosophical discussions. And they address these philosophical questions on the existence of deities, of matter, love, truth, morality, and reason. I wouldn't be able to accurately name them all, but I mean, you've seen some of them, I'm sure.
Horribly famous.
I believe you've met.
It seems like philosophy is the favorite hidey-hole of the internet Christian. These guys seem to think that because some dude wrote so-called proofs of God back in the 1200s, that they have actual reasons to believe their God's existence is real, and that I need to take them seriously. They come up with these formal arguments, the premises, the conclusions, and they demand that I accept their arguments when I fucking don't, because it's all a bunch of bullshit. See, my problem with philosophy is not just that it's often pretentious, droning on and navel-gazing with some schmuck trying to sound educated a couple of degrees past his intelligence, because it's often exactly fucking that. But my main problem with it, the main thing with me, with philosophy, is that it lacks self-correction mechanisms. That's my main issue with it. Let me explain here. So you have all these great thinkers, right? And they write down their great thoughts, and they have them published in the popular press. Other great thinkers read them and agree, and they discuss their great thoughts, and they have these great discussions and lend their own perspective. They reach a consensus that, yes, we, the great minds, have come to this conclusion. And everything's tits and cocaine until somebody says, you know, shit ain't like that. And here's why. And they break it down, and there's this irrefutable debunking of the original argument. Now, if this was science, the old ones would be done right then. A redaction would be published, and the flawed argument would go out of print, relegated to a footnote of wrongness.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong.
I personally like to see things like the Kalam, Paley's Watchmaker, the arguments to design, the ontological arguments be treated in this way. As one would say, Phlogiston. Now what's that? Phlogiston is this theory, back before we knew that oxygen was a thing. It postulated that combustible materials had this thing in it, phlogiston, which was released upon burning. We know now that such is not the case, just as we know that the Kalam should never be used to try to prove a deity, and that the ontological arguments yield nothing. When one looks at these so-called proofs of God, or as I call them, word games with apologists, invariably you're gonna run across Thomas Aquinas. The Catholics call him a saint. I call him Tommy Boy. And to be clear, when I do so, I do not intend to besmirch the movie of the same title. I mean no disrespect to the memory of the late, great Chris Farley. In his Summa Theologica, Tommy Boy came up with 5 ways that people could know that God exists. They're all crap, but as philosophy fails to self-correct, they're still encountered. Tommy Boy's first way is the argument from motion. Our senses prove that some things are in motion. Things move when potential motion becomes actual motion. Only an actual motion can convert a potential motion into an actual motion. Nothing can be at once in both actuality and potentiality in the same respect. That is, if both actual and potential, it is actual in one respect and potential in another. Therefore, nothing can move itself. Therefore, each thing in motion is moved by something else. The sequence of motion cannot extend ad infinitum. Therefore, it is necessary to arrive at a first mover, put in motion by no other, and this everyone understands to be God. Well, because shit moves, something had to move it. He argues that the something, in this context, is God. Sorry, Tommy boy, but there's motion, at least at the molecular level, everywhere that the ambient temperature is above 0 degrees Kelvin. Which is everywhere, because the background temperature of space is 2.7 Kelvin. Even in the coldest part of the universe, the Boomerang Nebula, there is still movement because it is at 1 degree Kelvin. Thus, it's in motion. Furthermore, gravity is a thing, and this can cause stuff to move. Electromagnetism is a thing too, and that force can cause stuff to move, so the argument is silly.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
Tommy Boy's second way is the argument from efficient cause. We perceive a series of efficient causes of things in the world. Nothing exists prior to itself. Therefore, nothing is the efficient cause of itself. If a previous efficient cause does not exist, neither does the thing that results. Therefore, if the first thing in a series does not exist, nothing in the series exists. If the series of efficient causes extends ad infinitum into the past, there would be no things existing now. That is plainly false, for there are things existing now that came about through efficient causes.
So fucking what?
Therefore, efficient causes do not extend ad infinitum into the past. Therefore, it is necessary to admit a first efficient cause, to which everyone gives the name of God. This is the prime mover argument, which is horseshit, because one here would have to make a special pleading case for the deity in question to absolve them from the constraints of the argument, that's saying everything needs something, except for the thing that I need to not need something. That's what this is saying. It's duplicitous, it's dishonest, and if you can't see that, you're part of the problem.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
Tommy Boy's third way is the argument from possibility and necessity. We find in nature that things are possible to be and not to be, that come into being and go out of being, that is, contingent beings. Assume that every being is a contingent being. For each contingent being, there is a time it does not exist. Therefore, it is impossible for these always to exist. Therefore, there could have been a time when no things existed. Therefore, at that time there would have been nothing to bring the currently existing contingent beings into existence. Therefore, there would be nothing in existence now.
Horseshit!
We have reached an absurd result from assuming that every being is a contingent being. Therefore, not every being is a contingent being. Therefore, some being exists of its own necessity, and does not receive its existence from another being, but rather causes them. This all men speak of as God. Tommy Boy's third way is a cop-out to cover up for the failure of the second way, and attempts to avoid the special pleading fallacy by postulating a necessary being, which, surprise, he calls God. So here, he's trying to define the deity into existence. He's essentially saying, I can't think of anything else, therefore it's gotta be God. Which is what? Say it with me, friends and foes, ladies and gentlemen, that's right, it's an argument from ignorance. Ergo, fail.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
In addition, Tommy Boy is assigning agency here, showing his presuppositions. Why must there be some being existing out of its own necessity? Why a being? Oh, because Tommy Boy wrote this crap 900 fucking years ago and didn't know shit about how things actually fucking work. It's useless. Next! Tommy Boy's fourth way is the argument from gradation of being. There is a gradation to be found in things. Some are better or worse than others. Predications of degree require reference to the uttermost case. For example, a thing is said to be hotter according as it more nearly resembles that which is hottest. The maximum in any genus is the cause of all in that genus. Therefore, there must also be something which is to all beings the cause of their being, goodness, and every other perfection. And this we call God. Tommy's fourth way is cute. And by cute, I mean silly. But it's the argument from degrees. Not temperature, because he's already tried that, but by levels of coolness, levels of awesomeness. So it kind of goes that some dudes are cool. Some dudes are super cool.
You're fucking Beretta. They believe every fucking word because you're super cool.
Now imagine the dopest, flyest, OG, pimp, gangsta, player, hardcore motherfucker, and that motherfucker's God. So someone else, someone more imaginative than me, can think of one more level of coolness. Well, then that's God. And then some other guy, born, 56 frickin' years from now, he comes up with an even cooler dude. Then that would be God. You see what I mean here? This is how fictional characters, particularly those in shared world milieus, like religious fan fiction, such as the New Testament, often grow in power and awesomeness as the stories go on. So, how does it work? You keep embellishing the original bullshit and it eventually becomes divine? No. Sorry. That's just freaking idiotic. It doesn't ever get you to an end result. And the fifth or sixth iteration of the character bears little resemblance to the one on whom the stories were based in the first place. You know, kind of like the Gospels. Consider the Jesus character in Mark versus the Jesus character in John. That can't ever get you to a deity. That only gets you to a sequel, for fuck's sake. That's not proof, it's a dumb idea, it's broken fucking logic.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
Tommy Boy's fifth way is the argument from, design. We see that natural bodies work towards some goal and do not do so by chance. Most natural things lack knowledge. But as an arrow reaches its target because it is directed by an archer, what lacks intelligence achieves goals by being directed by something intelligent. Therefore, some intelligent being exists by whom all natural things are directed to their end, and this being we call God. Tommy Boy's fifth and most idiotic way is the argument to design. It basically says, since things appear to be designed with a purpose, Someone definitely did design them with a purpose, and that person is not a person, but rather his preferred deity, which is complete bullshit. 77 ways to Sunday and back home with the proverbial cows. We know how stars and planets and species form. No divine intervention there whatsoever. True, we do not know precisely how life itself began, but we can account for the diversity of life, that which we see, by evolution through natural selection, and no God, no deity at all, ever, is required to solve a biological question. No deity is required to solve any astronomical question either, for that matter. Physics works just fine to account for all of that. So, to propose, therefore, that a heretofore undiscovered deity, without coherent definition, did something, anything, in such a manner that is undetectable, is to say nothing. Nothing that need be taken seriously. At best, it's a thought experiment. But when one tries to call it proof, they've gone a claim too far. Because nowhere in reality does one find the fingerprint of any God, except for in the imaginations of the adherents of a particular entity. Every time they point to God did it, the God in question is exactly the one they just happen to believe in and worship. It's almost like that which they call evidence isn't.
Nope, 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 nope.
The design they so desperately need to make their assertions sans evidence relevant to make this apologetic work is, like their God, nothing more than imagination. Not proof. It's not real. What it is, ladies and gentlemen, friends and foes, is nonsense. Exactly none of Tommy Boy's 5 ways gets you anything. But sadly, his dreck will not go out of print because no one currently publishing him is ever going to redact that idiocy and issue an apology for disseminating the erroneous nonsense in the first place, which, to my mind, is what should be done. Aquinas sells. And you see, the way I see it, that's part of the problem. The appeal to sales is appealing to popularity, namely his. And there's little incentive for a publisher to go and redact or remove debunked bullshit in the field of philosophy because some dipshit's gonna buy it. It's not like it's published in scientific journals, y'all. It's put out there for mass consumption. Now, philosophy's failure to self-correct is sometimes defended by its enthusiasts as a strength. To me, that's like Microsoft logic, okay? That's like taking a bug and trying to make it a feature, right? That's trying just to redesign a design flaw to try to make it endearing. Well, what they say is, you read all the shit and then you come to your own conclusion and prepare to defend it, which, okay, but don't you want to get rid of the things that are patently fucking false? Like, I might be able to see their point if there was a way to get rid of the worthless. So, in my conclusion,
exterminate all rational thought. That is the conclusion I have come to.
What is the man talking about? I'm being serious.
So is he.
with all the contradictory, idiotic bullshit that is out there, there's little point in bothering with the vast majority of it. And as a preemptive strike to those who would argue otherwise, I'm going to invoke Sturgeon's law here. 90% of everything is crap. Now, I'm not saying that all philosophy is worthless. Don't get me wrong. I am saying that 90% of the people that engage in it are full of shit, and that 90% of what comes out of their face holes ain't worth a flying fuck at a rolling donut. I am saying that. including mine. Why not? But as far as I can tell, the best, the very best that philosophy can do is get you to an idea that is coherent, that you can test. It can do that. It can get you to a coherent, testable idea. A hypothesis, in other words. And a hypothesis ain't worth shit until you back it up with experimentation, observation, and documentation. Until such time as that happens, it's merely a fucking idea. Now I'll grant that many people, like Tommy Boy and other apologists, have an idea of their gods. And that's fine. I've no interest in taking anyone's ideas away from them. But failing to have any valid experiment to demonstrate their ideas correct, they also have nothing with which to convince anyone else that their idea is worthy of a discussion, much less a decision.
Because you got nothing. You got nothing in court. You don't got the bookkeeper. You got nothing.
And if you can't get over that hump, I don't know why we're bothering to speak about it in the first place, other than doctrinal evangelicalism. They have to do it because their Holy Writ says so. Now here is usually where I start slagging on the stories they call scripture, but I suspect that's a topic best left for other videos.
That's a story for another day.
Anyways, I am so glad you stuck around. Thank you so much for it. I'm Jeff Cooper. This is the Blue Collar Heathen YouTube channel, and this is the part of the episode where you do the YouTubey things. The liking, the sharing, the subscribing, the ringing of the bell, the getting of the notifications. Leave me a comment down below. And until next time, you take it easy. I was just chatting there with Faye, the most gracious. She is the most gracious. And happy birthday, Faye. Too many puppies. If you're gonna write a script for fucking YouTube, make sure you can pronounce the fucking words that you're gonna use. My name is Mud. You ain't in my contact list, I don't answer this fucking phone. Straight up, point blank, that don't fucking happen. Got fucking Primus stuck in my head. Can you imagine being the guitar player in Primus? I don't even know where the fuck I was. Like, trying to keep up with Les Claypool. Like, how fucking difficult would that be? Like, I have to write a guitar thing to go with that fucking bass line? Hosannas from the Basements of Hell. Now that's a fucking album title for your ass. Childproof caps have spoiled my happiness. I'm done. That's it. I'm out.